The first rule of ruling a magic kingdom in this land was that it could always be worse. Right now, Irvine was besieged in Town 5, another force from the lizard enemies on the way to reinforce the besieging army. Not that the first one had managed to break through their defenses yet, but Matt had no knowledge if another army was coming in behind. Perhaps that was what they meant by fog of war. On top of that, with Columbia still winging her way to the other side of the mountain range, Matt was certain that his enemies there, who were, technically, under an enforced peace agreement, were gathering to launch an attack the moment the peace treaty was over, or perhaps even before that. After all, unlike his enemies, Matt had no idea what the penalty for breaking a negotiated peace treaty was. Then, of course, he had one more side that was of concern: the northern states. The battle with the Created was still ongoing, with 𝗪𝒽 having been rebuffed. He could not conquer the city, not with the hero in play, not with better units there than what he had, at least on the melee end. All he could do was wear them away, using his flying and long-range units to hammer at his opponents until reinforcements arrived. Harpies, magical ones on the way from 𝗧, were the most distant, over 7 days away. Then there were the 𝗂𝒄, simple melee creatures that would reinforce 𝗪𝒽's tentative front line. Once he managed to get enough frontline fighters, they would try again, if their enemy didn't reinforce. Truthfully, the only side that did not have an enemy coming for him was the south, and that was because, so far, the water was an impassable barrier, one that even Matt did not have time to build or break from. "We don't need 10 𝗂𝒄 in Town 6, do we?" Matt asked 𝗧, prodding the former, present, Harpy Queen. His only subordinate thus far, though he did hope that at some point he could get another of his enemies to surrender to him. In many ways, her choice to surrender had given him a massive leg up over where he should have been, and had thus been the turning point from struggling to survive to coming to dominate the current battle. Without her help, he was certain there was no way he could have managed a 3-way war. If nothing else, the extra pair of heroes, Azima and Columbia, had been a major increase in the number of heroes he commanded but hadn't had to pay for. "Do you intend to reduce the number of units here, too?" Carlos, the only other Earthling here and a devout priest, asked. Also a priest with a capital P, having been designated that by whatever magic system it was. Right now, of course, the pacifist was rather a detriment to his hero numbers, but Matt had high hopes that he might be able to do a rather more important thing: figure out exactly why the gods had thrown them into this cage match against enemy lords and heroes. Eventually, Matt said. "Problem?" Carlos shrugged, though Matt noted the fear in the man's eyes. He understood it, what with the recent presence of the goblin army. He wondered how the man would feel if he had to do battle, how he would handle it, and the nightmares that came after. He still had them, of watching 𝗂𝒃 pounding on the gates, of grappling with the enemy hero and dying in a variety of increasingly gruesome ways. Most recently, being electrocuted, a new idea thanks to the 𝗂𝒄 lightning rods and Mad Science City. There was, he knew, something to be said about potentially talking to the priest, telling him of his troubles. Wasn't that what priests were for? At least back in the real world, where asking for forgiveness for crimes against others was all the rage. As though saying some Hail Marys and having someone bless you were sufficient to forgive one for trespass against another. True forgiveness had to come from those wronged, not from a third party. "We could split some 𝗂𝒄 from Town 6, but were we not waiting for the other units to finish first?" 𝗧 asked. "Probably." Matt reviewed his notes and then let out a sigh. "Yeah, you're right. No point in potentially getting some of them sniped. And sending them in a block is probably the smartest idea." He waved that information away and poked next at the scouts he had moving around, staring at the new hexes that had been revealed. Not much new, just more empty hexes. Useful if he had to build a town, though he'd yet to figure out how to do that, or even build new villages. Sometimes the world was ultra-realistic, and at other times, it was strangely constrained.